And finally, after all, when your behavior and your identity are fully aligned, you are no longer pursuing behavior change. You are simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be. James, my man, we are on the same frequency. Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit. It's Friday, November 26th. I want to wish you a belated happy Thanksgiving. If you're celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you had a great time with your family. Safe travels. We're able to share your appreciation of those you love and those in your life. And that if you are listening to this on today on Friday, you're not thinking about spending money on Black Friday, but you're thinking about spending money tomorrow on Small Business Saturday. A quick plug for all the small businesses out there. As the husband of a woman who owns her own small business, a retail store, I know how hard our small business owners work and how underappreciated they are and how for granted they're taken, and discounts are asked for, and people just don't understand what all goes into running a small business. So if you're going to be spending some dollars this weekend, as tradition goes, then make sure you allocate a significant amount of your dollars tomorrow on Saturday for small businesses in your area or online. So that is my little brought to you by the small businesses of America as we lead into this week's episode of The Pursuit. And if you were following me on social media this week, you saw an illustration. This is something I think I'm going to try to do regularly. It's every week tease the episode with an illustration as I kind of go down my path of trying to get better at art and drawing and expressing myself through visualization. But the illustration I drew was two images. One that is a straight line going from left to right, and another one that looks like maybe a target or a record with circles, a smaller circle, a bigger circle, and going out and out. So what does that mean? That's the whole topic for today's episode. Is kind of our pursuit. Is it a linear process, or is it maybe something more represented by this album is what we're going to go with. And before I get into this explanation and kind of the whole conversation for today, again, planning for this is not normally me. I'm not scripted, but I know the things I want to go through. I've got my notebook in front of me, some notes. I actually have some other things on my phone we're going to touch base on as well. I have to give credit to my friend Derek Grant. Get used to his name. You're going to hear it a lot. He and I have a great relationship, a lot of good conversations. But this imagery of the straight line and the record is what we're going to go with. Comes from him. And this was a conversation he and I had a couple weeks ago about time. And he said time is not a straight line. It's not linear from A to B. It is this record idea. And I understood what he was saying, and we had a good discussion on it. And as I was thinking about pursuit and what it is that I'm doing and where I want to go and who I want to become, I took that illustration and applied it to our pursuit, which I guess in the grand scheme of things, our pursuit is no different than time. We're pursuing our passions. We're pursuing the life that we want. It happens over a course of time. So therefore, they're one and the same. But I want to use this illustration for you to kind of help you understand that where you're trying to go and who you want to become and the life you want to live, it's there already. It's just you need to realize it and start to embody it today. So the illustration says that the record is actually reality and that the straight line is perception, meaning as we go on our pursuit, and on the illustration there's a JN and a JF, that's just me now and me in the future. So you can put your initial there, or we could just go N and F, now and future. There's the perception is we move in a straight line. I'm starting here and I'm going to end there. And maybe it's a little bit more squiggly or bouncing around, which is probably the way it feels, but we think that we need to go from here to there. When the reality of it is, and we're going to talk about this, is that where I want to be in the future, if you look at the record, it is further out on the circles. There's me today, maybe on the third line, and I want to be on the fifth line. That version of me is already there. I just have to embody it today, and then the conscious world reality will catch up to it. So I'll explain what I mean. And I have more than just my thoughts. That's the part of my phone. I have somebody that we all know, love, and respect who says something very, very similar, just in a different way. And I think it will help pull this all together. So I am saying that the version of me in the future is already here. I just have to embody it so then that I can become that. And I think a good example of what I mean by that is, let's just take weight loss. I have a personal goal. We're going to the Dominican Republic for New Year's. All things hopefully going well for that as far as travel goes. And I have a weight goal I want to get down to. I want to lose 10 pounds. I don't know why 10. I don't know why this number's in my mind. 195 is where I want to be. I'll share with all of you. We're family. It's an arbitrary number, but it's a number. And when Derek and I were talking, going back to that conversation, he explained that we need to change our thinking of not we need to do these things today to get to that future self, meaning I don't need to think about today I'm at 205, I want to get to 195, I need to eat less carbs, I need to work out more, I need to do these things so that I'll get there. That activity needs to happen, those behaviors need to change to get there, but that's the wrong mindset. Instead, what I need to think about is I'm already 195. What am I doing? How do I feel? How am I eating? What are my activities like? How am I sleeping? And then start to embody that. So feel the way that I feel. So as I've gone through this exercise, I haven't lost the weight yet, but I already internally feel leaner. I feel stronger. I feel more proud of the way I look if I didn't have my shirt on. I'm not there yet, but I am feeling that already. And between that and then thinking about the way that I'm acting. So at 195, I'm working out again regularly. I'm eating healthier. I'm not eating junk food. And we're going into the hardest season to do that, but I have no doubts that come New Year's, I'm going to be exactly where I want to be for that trip because I'm embodying. I'm already 195. The scale may say I'm 205. I am already 195. I'm already that version of myself. And because I'm living that and I'm embodying that, my mind is already there, and eventually the reality or the conscious world catches up to it. There is a book that I'll reference a little bit later on. I have on my phone as well, and it is the Emerald Tablets. And Thoth is the person who wrote this. He turned into Hermes, and this is going back, and it's kind of spiritual in some ways, and very interesting book, a hard read. But there's a saying in there that I'll quote, and it's kind of this embodiment of me embodying who I am in the future, allowing the reality to become that down the road. And it's not so different. Again, it's not that different from I'm going to do these things to get there, but if I'm not already there mentally and feeling that way, then it's easier for me to get off the path. And trust me, I've done it a number of times. I've wanted to get down to 195 many, many times. I never get there because my thinking is off. So that is what I want you to kind of realize, is that wherever you're going, it doesn't have to be weight loss. It could be you want to be a business owner, you want to have a certain net worth, you want to eliminate student loan debt or medical debt that you have. Think about how you feel when that moment is hit, when that last loan is paid off. How do you feel? What are you doing at that time? What were you doing to get that done? And then begin to pull that back. So we want to pull from our future self to today rather than try to do these things to get to our future self. And again, it's a change in framework. It's a change of the way you view things, but I think it's a very powerful change, and it all begins just in our mindset. And it can happen with anything. So that's what that illustration represents, is that we don't move in a straight line. We're not here today, there tomorrow, straight line to get there. It's that, going back to the record or to the album analogy, is that version of me is there. I just need to pick the needle up and move it over and drop it on that version of me and play it. And then therefore, that's where I will be in the future. The conscious world, the reality, ends up catching up. There's always a lag because we have to think, feel, and be before something can actually come to fruition. So it's going to be a lag, but if you stay with that embodiment, it will get you where you need to be. So again, think of where you want to go like a record. You have the ability to pick the needle up to change the song on a record. And if you're younger, you may not know what that is. And I remember listening to records when I was younger. I'd go down into the living room. The Michael Jackson album was the one that always sticks out in my head, and I would remember moving the song around. And I actually just recently had a gift that was a record player. So it's kind of interesting that a record player comes back into my life, and a few weeks later I have this great analogy about moving the needle to get where I want to be, picking it up, dropping it on the track, and putting it down. On that album, all of the songs are already there. They already exist on the album. We just need to move the needle to it. All of the versions of you that you want to be, they exist. You can be that. You just have to move the needle to get there. Now, I think I'll probably say this way too many times over the course of this podcast, but it's not as simple as just wanting it and getting it to happen. Yes, there's a lot of hard work that's going to have to go in between me going from 205 to 195, but it can happen. I'm already there mentally, and I'm moving in that direction. So yes, I'm going to have to work out more, because in the future, 195, I'm working out regularly, I'm eating healthy. We already went over this. Those are going to be changes from what I was doing a couple weeks ago, and they're not always easy, and they're not always fun, but it's doable, and it's going to happen. You have to believe that. So I don't want this conversation about pursuing and changing your mindset to get where you want to be. I don't want to be misleading and say it's going to happen overnight and it's super easy and doesn't have hard work, because that's not the case. But I want you to know that it is possible, and there'll be plenty of examples over the course of this podcast of me sharing real life examples of it. And a lot of things that we've already discussed in previous episodes get you there. So I want to go and talk about how you get to that future self and dig further into it. Embodying who you want to be in the future. Again, closing your eyes and thinking about, in this future version of myself, where I want to go, what am I doing? What's my life look like? Who am I surrounded by? What are my behaviors? What are my habits? And one of the hardest things to do, but I think is the most powerful part of this exercise, is how do you feel? How do you feel when you are that version of yourself in the future? And if you really buy into this practice, you can feel it. And I will tell you that for the longest time, visualization and imagining how I would feel in the future has been very hard for me. When I meditate, it's hard for me to visualize. But through this exercise, and maybe it's just been me progressing and growing and kind of learning this myself. Again, these are just me trying to plant seeds so you can understand this and you can recognize when these things happen for you, so you can experience. My experiences, sharing them with you, will be less of impactful than you actually experiencing it yourself. So if I can help you get that first experience or try this for the first time and you see that it works, then you buy in and then you stay with it, and then it begins to compound. So that's why I share all these examples. But the feeling thing is very big. So again, I can visualize and close my eyes and feel how I feel come New Year's Eve. The happiness, the I don't want to say pride, but feeling good about the way I look in the beach with the boys or in the pool with the boys. I can already feel that. And that feeling makes me want to have it because it feels so good. Not that I'm not happy today, but I feel better in December. And I want to have that feeling, so it keeps me moving in that direction. So it is a very much of a mindset. So I want to give a more concrete, that's not a concrete example per se, but I want to give you some more evidence from somebody who's more reputable than I am. I know that I am just this individual who has these beliefs and have had these personal experiences I'm trying to help you find for yourself. But who am I? I have no data, I have no scientific data behind. But I was thinking about this topic as leading up to it, and the interview I had with James Clear on All About Your Benjamins when his book Atomic Habits was getting ready to come out, I remembered something that he said, which made me go back to Atomic Habits and revisit what I had read. And a small tangent, the fact that I got to interview James Clear on All About Your Benjamins is wild. The story behind that is he tweeted out, if you have a listenership of 10,000 an episode or something way bigger than what All About Your Benjamins was, that he would come on the podcast and talk about his book. And I just shot my shot. Sometimes on your pursuit, you got to shoot. You can't, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I shot my shot, responded to the tweet, hey, I don't have that big of an audience, would love to have you on. And he responded that he would come on. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm interviewing James Clear on my podcast. And he was already big then, but he's blown up ever since. But on that podcast, we were talking about behaviors, because Atomic Habits is just about that. How do you build good habits and behaviors that come into it? And he talked about the way that we frame things, the way that we say things. So instead of saying that I'm giving up sugar, you say I don't eat sugar. Or not that if you want to go to bed earlier, it's not that I'm trying to go to bed earlier and get more sleep. It's I go to bed early. And it's embodying that in the words that you say, that eventually you become to own that. It's the same thing of thinking about who I want to be or who you want to be in the future, feeling that and living that person today, taking those activities that you're doing in the future at the version of yourself that you want to be, and beginning to do that and feel that today. It's the same thing as repositioning the way you say something. It's the same thing as saying, I don't eat sugar, instead of I'm trying to give up sugar. I don't eat sugar means that's who I am, and therefore I don't eat sugar, and therefore that's who I become. So it's saying it a different way. And that's one of the things I love about this conversation, is that you can say these things in a number of ways. You don't have to fully believe it the way that I'm structuring it. Maybe you don't believe that Our Pursuit in Time is an album and that you can just pick the needle up and drop it. Maybe you like James Clear's way of explaining it better. It's saying the exact same thing in a different way. And I don't care how you believe it or how it resonates with you, as long as you find the way that this thinking speaks to you and you adopt. That's all that matters. You don't have to do it my way. You don't have to do it James Clear way. Whatever way you're able to envision yourself in the future and become that by your thoughts and by your actions and by embodying the future and taking from your future self to bring yourself in your reality there. I don't care. But let's go to Atomic Habits. And he has the example of cigarettes. I'm going to read this real quick. Imagine two people resisting a cigarette. When offered a smoke, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." It sounds like a reasonable response, but this person still believes they're a smoker who is trying to be something else. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. The second person declines by saying, "No thanks, I am not a smoker." It's a small difference, but the statement signals a shift in identity. Sidebar, this is me now. That statement signals that that person is living on that realm of the album that they want to be at. They are technically still a smoker, but they're not a smoker in their mind. And by continuously saying, "I'm not a smoker," they are moving further out on that album. The needle is being moved and dropped to that version of themselves in the future when they are not a smoker. Back to James. Smoking was a part of their former life, not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who smokes. And then finally, this is not another example, but I just wanted to tie this in as we leave James Clear. Your behaviors are usually a reflection of your identity. My identity is me in the future. My behaviors are a reflection of that. I am 195 pounds, feeling good, getting adequate sleep, eating healthy. My behaviors are a reflection of that identity. That's what I identify with. I don't identify with this version of me today. I identify with me in December, and eventually this version of me is going to catch up to that identity. Back to James. Research has shown that once a person believes in a particular aspect of their identity, they are more likely to act in alignment with that belief. Again, I am me. I am this version of me. I will never go third person. I am me in December. I am not me today. And this version that you see on YouTube is working towards catching up to that, but I'm already there. And finally, after all, when your behavior and your identity are fully aligned, you are no longer pursuing behavior change. You are simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be. James, my man, we are on the same frequency. We're saying the same thing, just in a different way. So again, back to your pursuit and going in the direction that you want to go, whatever that may be. And I use the weight loss example just as an example. Whatever it is that you're pursuing, whatever pursuit you're on, James Clear, who is smarter than I am, more successful than I am, richer than I am, more well-known than I am, is saying the exact same thing that I'm telling you, just coming from it a different angle. And I mentioned there was another book, as I pull this up, that I wanted to kind of quote from, the Emerald Tablets. Let me get to that real quick. And at the very beginning of it, so this is ancient stuff. This is back before the pyramids. At the very beginning of it, I'm getting back there. Bear with me. All right. Wasn't this embarrassing? The digital version doesn't have it. Well, basically, the quote from Thoth is saying that as above, so below, and it kind of goes on. I'll write it in the show notes of this, so that you can see this is real life. I'm not going to go back and edit this. We'll keep this in, but I'll put it in there. But it's saying the exact same thing: as above, so below. And above being your subconscious, what you're thinking, as that is what you believe, then so will below, the physical world, will become. So this has been known for years and years and years. And if you talk to people who are at any level of success that you're interested in, they visualize, they know where they want to go. They know these things. If you listen to hip hop like I do, Nipsey Hussle talked about it. There's another artist I really love who does everything himself and is wildly successful. You may have never heard of. His name is Russ. He talks about it. Nas talks about it. Jay-Z talks about it. All of these individuals, they understand this power of this, if you want to call it manifestation, but of knowing where you want to go and embodying that. Boiler Room, one of my favorite movies that came out when I was in college. It's about shadiness in Wall Street, but there's a part, and you've heard it before in different ways. Ben Affleck is this manager. He comes into the new sales folks, and he's talking to them about act as if. Act as if you're successful. Act as if, and he goes on all these things, and they're not very, they're not the most polite things that he says, but act as if you're that person. Now, I don't like necessarily fronting and lying to put on this persona that I'm something that I'm not. But in your mind and in your actions, act as if you are that version of yourself. Embody that. So even in that movie that was showing you all the downsides to Wall Street and the boiler rooms that were back there of slinging stocks that were not right for people, there was still this mentality of if you want to be successful, you got to have activism. Now, this is where the financial advisor hat comes on. What I'm talking about is more, visualizations and feelings and actions. It's not necessarily, I want to be successful, I want to be a millionaire, so I'm going to go buy the expensive car, I'm going to go buy the expensive house that I'm not ready for and financially can't afford, and that everything's going to come back up to it. I think that's a dangerous way to approach this. I think you need to visualize yourself driving that car, so every time you get in that car, you're not driving your, Honda Accord or whatever it might be, you're driving that Tesla, you're driving that Range Rover or whatever it might be. And when you go into your apartment or you go into your house, you're not going into your apartment or your house. You're going into the house that you want to live in the future, and you visualize that. When you walk through that door, you feel that excitement that you are walking into this great house that you're going to have in the future. That's more of the visualization. That's more of the exercise to go through. That's embodying it. It's not go buy it before you can and the money will follow. And we'll come back to that. If you remember last week, we talked about 36 and putting things and focusing on yourself and your family and your creativity and letting material things follow along. I have more to talk about that in the future, but that's what I mean by the embodiment. It's the feelings, the actions. It's not necessarily living that lifestyle quite yet. It's how do you feel? What are the actions that you're doing? And then that lifestyle will come, and then you go buy the big house when everything falls into place. All right. So I really wanted to bring James Clear in because I feel like he brings more credibility to this thought process because of who he is, but it's saying the exact same thing that I am believing in, that I'm trying to express to you. So hopefully you'll go give Atomic Habits another read or listen to the audiobook and hear more, because the behaviors are a part of all this conversation as well, but that's not my expertise. So that's it for this week. Really excited to be back doing these. I look forward to Fridays now even more so, not because the week's over, but because I get to come do this. Shout out to Tyler, my video guy again. I shouted him out at the last episode. I don't know if you saw the intro to last week's Welcome Back, but he knocked it out of the park, and it was phenomenal. And it gave me some excitement about getting more creative with these episodes and trying to add some more to it. So if you didn't see, go back and just watch the beginning of last week's episode. I thought he did an amazing job, and hopefully we'll have a real good intro for this week and kind of make that a part of what the pursuit is. I do want to tease next week's episode. Next week's episode, we're going to put the financial advisor hat on a little bit. So we're still going to talk about pursuit. We're going to build upon this embodying what we want to be and moving in that direction. But we're also going to talk about how to align your finances to your goals and then take it to the next level of putting 36 at the center. Yourself, your family, your passions, your values, making that the center of your plan, and how do we build your finances around that? So not finances in the middle, align to your values, values in the middle, and build the finances around. So we're going to talk about that and actually have some financial planning, not recommendations naturally, of course, but some financial planning concepts to think about that as somebody who is on a pursuit may need to think about their financial plan differently than somebody who is just kind of going through the motions. Not that that's wrong, but there's different ways you might want to structure access to money, for example, if you're on a pursuit that would require you to do that. So excited about that episode because I get to put the advisor hat back on and kind of take these two things together, which is ultimately what All About Your Benjamins and the Pursuit is about. It's about, this conversation of pursuing your passions and finding your purpose, but then also bringing in the financial component of it, of how you make that happen in the right way. So with that, I appreciate you for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying these episodes as much as I am. I will be begging more often and asking for likes and comments and reviews and shares because I really think that this pursuit is going to go somewhere and be meaningful, and I want more people to hear about it and plant as many seeds as I can with as many people as possible so that when it's right for them to have that tree or plant, whatever it may be, grow, then they'll know. This is what I do with the boys. I tell them all this stuff knowing at 11, 9, and 4, it doesn't make any sense. But one day they're going to remember that crazy stuff that their dad was talking about, and they're going to get it way before I did. Man, if I would have known this stuff 10 years ago, it would be totally different. Not that now is great. I have no complaints. I wouldn't change a thing, but I wish I understood these things earlier on. So with that, I will quit rambling. Have a great weekend. Remember, support your small businesses tomorrow on Small Business Saturday. And remember to always keep on your pursuit.